No. No, this can't be. Not my game of the year. No, please, no. Why? Kingdom Come Deliverance was released on the 13th of February 2018, and my did it come as a great success. It was absolutely phenomenal when it came out. Yes, it has its fair share of bugs and issues, but I think it's safe to say Warhorse Studio knocked it out of the park for their first big game with this studio. There has been some controversy in the past about this. I made a video that had some very mixed reviews, let's say, but something else has come up very recently, and it's something that I wanted to talk about, and it's whether Kingdom Come Deliverance is dead or dying, and how can it be saved at this point. Well, the reason this sparked my interest is because two articles have been published, one by PC Games Insider and one by Tweaktown. What kind of a name is that? I mean, the Tweaktown one is pretty much pathetic, so I wouldn't even go and look at that one. They kind of hardly put any effort into it. But the PC Game Insider one, they put some research into it, and it's titled, Kingdom Come Deliverance has lost 95% of its player base. Which is interesting to me, since this was a game that was so hyped and so successful. It sold over, I think it was 500,000 copies in its first week, which is incredible for a new IP. And it seems to have lost a lot of its player base, and this is why I think why. So looking at the Steam charts, we can obviously see that its peak time was of course around the release of it. This had around 96,000 players, concurrent players on Steam, which is incredible. That is a lot of people, especially for a single player game like this. But of course, as it normally does with single player games, is the player base starts to drop. It went from around 96,000, it went down 60,000, 30,000, and it just kept dropping until it's pretty steady now. But the problem is, it's steady at around 3, 4, 5,000 players at the same time, which really isn't that impressive, if I'm going to be completely honest, but there's a reason to this. It's a single player game, this is what happens. And I saw Daniel Vavra making this statement. Yes, Kingdom Come has lost a large amount of its player base, concurrent player base, because it is a single player game, and that's just how it works. And I completely agree with this statement. I've completed the game, I've done pretty much everything that I want to do, and I've kind of really not gone back to it that often. And I'll talk a little bit later about why and what will make me come back, and how I think the player base will absolutely increase in this game phenomenally, because I know it will happen at some point. But talking about how single player games player base dropped, let's go on to Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Now, of course, Bethesda is a massive studio. It's expected that they're going to be so. This is one of the best selling games of all time. It was incredible. So it's not really that comparable, but I thought it was an interesting point to make about single player games in general. So in 2018, of course, Skyrim came out in 2011. God, that was a long time ago. And in 2018, we're still getting around 20,000 players a day. It's going around from 15 to 20,000, sometimes at peak going up to 30,000 players at weekends, which for a game that came out in 2011 is pretty goddamn impressive. And it's very similar with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which once again, yes, massive studio, so it's kind of a give that their game is massively played still even to this day. But that's not the only reason. And of course, this is what Kingdom Come Deliverance, I feel like, does need to slightly learn from. But then again, it is very early in its life of being a game. It only came out this year. And this is to do with developer progress. Now, the devs have been fixing patches and everything in the game amazingly. They're doing a great job. But the reason people keep coming back to The Witcher and Skyrim is because they keep bringing things out, and I know they're working on it. They're working on DLCs, and this is the main point that I think Kingdom Come Deliverance is going to get back on its feet, and players, of course, are going to flood back in once new DLCs have come out, new updates, bigger updates. They have put out updates, but there's nothing that big. There were so many bugs in the release date of Kingdom Come that they had to sort and fix all that stuff out before they could do anything else, and that means all their time and effort in these early days have been put into fixing bugs, which, yeah, is great that they've been doing it, but I suspect it slowed down quite a bit of the development of the other things. Now, I'm not saying that they should have released a DLC or anything like that. That will take ages to develop. I know the development time is a long time, manpower and all that stuff, and money, but I think it's a valid point. With so many bugs being released at the start, that would have put off a lot of people. I know many people have been commenting on my videos that they loved the game, but the amount of bugs sometimes made it unplayable. Some of the missions I had to restart, and whilst I was enjoying the game so much that I was willing to just restart the game and go back into it, many people might not be like that. People might not be so patient. If Kingdom Come is set in medieval Europe, if it's this realistic world, that is my thing. But to people that were maybe just getting into the game, that weren't really that interested in history or medieval Europe, or realism in fact. Some things like that, like having to restart the game, might put them off it completely, and they might not want to try again and reload back into the game. And unfortunately, this is the hard truth of releasing a game with so many bugs. Was it a brilliant game? Yes. Is it still a brilliant game? Do I still have fun when I play it? Yes. But of course, there are always two sides to the story. So I think bugs is one thing that I think has pushed a lot of players away, at least in the early stages. And now that they've patched a lot of the things, people aren't coming back because, of course, patching, there's not a lot of hype around releasing new patches and bugs and things like that stuff. Now, in this article, it finishes off with a bit that I think is completely irrelevant, talking about this whole racial demographics and stuff. That's a whole nother conversation. I made a video on that. I'm not going into that because I think that's completely irrelevant. That's got nothing to do with a drop in player base. It's mostly just the single player nature of it. Now, I'm going to be talking about another aspect of Kingdom Come that was so hyped and I feel like hasn't really delivered. And this is the modding community. Once again, it's very early on, so we do have to give it some leeway. But looking at all the mods, there's almost nothing that adds anything to the game. Now, I'm not just saying that to over-exaggerate, but I genuinely haven't found anything that adds anything to the game. It's things like, if I look on the mod page now, the top mods, as in the top rated, unlimited saving. Okay, that's just fixing a thing that some people didn't like in the game. Bow-dot reticle, once again. Sectorial lockpicking. That's just fixing something else. Easy lockpicking, unlimited weight, cheats, so you can literally just cheat. Faster arrows, richer merchants, perkaholic, remove those stupid arrow trails. All these things are just changing things that some people didn't like in the game. There's nothing adding it, and unfortunately, yeah, those mods are great for the first few months, but it's not going to keep people around. And this has got nothing to do with the developers, and I know there are some mod developers that are actually really working stuff, like the Game of Thrones guys, the Seven Kingdoms mod. When that comes out, my god, I'm going to be playing Kingdom Come Deliverance for hours and hours on end, and I'm sure many people are as well. There are tons of mods in the work at the moment, and I know they take years of hard work to do, but at the moment, there's nothing really there. There's no mods that actually add anything into. And I don't mean stuff like just retexturing stuff, like actually properly adding things in. It's just so early on in the state, all the mods I've seen, they're all reshades or just retextures or fixing some minor bugs or nitpicks that people had. There's nothing really big there to keep people coming back, and that's why Skyrim was amazing. They absolutely smashed the modding scene. I think Skyrim is probably the biggest modding scene in any game ever. It's now modding on consoles as well. The Fallout games have now taken that mantle up as well. The amount of mods for that, you can change Skyrim into completely different things like Middle Earth. You can even change to like Harry Potter, which is completely unrelated to Skyrim and how it works, but modders were able to do that. And I know it took years. I know it took years for them to make it. There's a game that came out in 2011, and I'm just hoping to God that Kingdom Come Deliverance can get to that point where modders are making mods like that, because otherwise I don't see this player count picking up. And I think it just has to be a combination of the developers keeping up what they're doing, making sure they bring out regular updates, and making sure they're listening to the community, which they are at the moment, which is great. But it also needs to be a combination with the community as well doing their part, bringing in modders, adding in new things to the game, because a game that's single player can't stay alive unless people still love it. And people need to show their love by it by bringing new things into the game, sharing it around with people. And I think that's really important to keeping a game alive. So I feel like single player games are actually coming back into their own now. There was a period between about 2013 and about 2017, which was the age of multiplayer, where there were so many multiplayer games coming out. This was the highlights of the Call of Duty ages. Halo was doing its thing at the time, Battlefield as well, Titanfall games. It was the age of multiplayer, and I feel like single player is coming back into fruition now. It's coming back into its own with games such as Uncharted, God of War, The Last of Us 2 coming out, Kingdom Come Deliverance, all that good stuff is all coming around, and I feel like single player is coming back. But it can't stay alive with these games if we don't keep them alive with modding and things. And I feel like modding is one of the most important things in a single player game. It's what keeps it alive, especially in a story-driven game like this where, honestly, I've completed the story and I just don't know what else to do. Yeah, there are side quests that I've done pretty much, but they're just fetch quests and nothing massively interesting at this point. So once you've completed the game, there isn't a whole ton to do, which is why I'm obviously waiting for some new updates, some new DLC. I can't wait to see what the developers can bring out in the near future. But I feel like that's the real reason that Kingdom Come Deliverance has died. Not this whole racist controversy about how there were no black people or it's not a melting pot of ethnicities. in Europe at that time, that's got nothing to do with it. That's a completely different conversation. It's just about bringing new content. That's literally the bottom line of it, from the developers and the community doing their thing. But what do you guys think? Do you still play Kingdom Come Deliverance? Have you completed the game? And if you have, do you still play it? And what is actually keeping you in the game? Because honestly, I'm slightly bored of it now. I've done my thing. I've got a good amount of time in it. It was worth my money. It was a brilliant game, but I've just run out of things to do. So I can't wait until we see some more content, and I'd love to see what you guys think about this topic. Whether you think player base has dropped more than it should do, or you think it sounds about right for a game of this release date and the smaller studio, I would say that it sounds about right, because there's not all these mods in like Skyrim. It doesn't have a massive modding community. So yes, it's understandable that it has dropped 95% of its player base, but I know that that will pick up in the future. But I can't wait to see what Kingdom Come Deliverance can bring us later on. But thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you join my Discord. We do weekly quizzes, you can win games. We just chill out, hang out there, I talk to you guys, and all that good stuff. But until then guys, I will see you in the next one.